You've described the connection between Russia and Ukraine. You've described Russia itself a couple of times as orthodox. That's central to your understanding of Russia. You've said you're orthodox. What does that mean for you? You're a Christian leader by your own description. So what effect does that have on you?
As I already mentioned, in 988, Prince Vladimir himself was baptized following the example of his grandmother, Princess Olga. And then he baptized his squad, and then, gradually, over the course of several years, he baptized all the Rus. It was a lengthy process, from pagans to Christians. It took many years. But in the end, this orthodoxy, Eastern Christianity, deeply rooted itself in the consciousness of the Russian people. As for religion in general, it's not about external manifestations. It's not about going to church every day or banging your head on the floor. It is in the heart. And our culture is so human-oriented. Dostoevsky, who was very well known in the West and the genius of Russian culture, Russian literature, spoke a lot about this, about the Russian soul. After all, Western society is more pragmatic. Russian people think more about the eternal, about moral values. I don't know, maybe you won't agree with me, but Western culture is more pragmatic after all. I'm not saying this is bad. It makes it possible for today's golden billion to achieve good success in production, even in science and so on. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that we kind of look the same, but our minds
so
are
do you
built a
see
little
the
different.
supernatural at work as you look out across what's happening in the world now? Do you see God at work? Do you ever think to yourself, these are forces that are not human?
No, to be honest, I don't think so. My opinion is that the development of the world community is in accordance with the inherent laws, and those laws are what they are. It's always been this way in the history of mankind.
For me personally, probably the most significant part of the interview was this. That's why I'm ending with this, and it really is the end of his interview anyhow. Tucker brings up Christianity and what it means to him personally. He goes into the history and talking about how in 988 Prince Vladimir himself was baptized, and then Princess Olga, and then their squad, and it took many years to be able to convert them from pagans to Christians, and how Eastern Christianity, Eastern Orthodoxy, kind of swept through Russia. And then he says a very significant statement here. He says, after all, Western society is very pragmatic. Russian people think more about the eternal or about moral values. I'm like, you're from Russia? You're the president of Russia. You're talking about moral values. Shouldn't we be talking about moral values? Shouldn't the United States be talking about moral values? Are we expressing moral values to the world around us, or are we expressing warmongering, hatred, anger? What are we expressing as a nation, as a country? Western culture, he says, is much more pragmatic after all. And he again, this was not, by listening to him, you come away with, he was really speaking what he believes. Okay, this was not a rehearsed speech. This was not something that he, thought about before. I don't believe he even understood that this question was coming. He answered this question according to what he believes. And there it was in black and white. And in the end, again, it draws a distinction between Eastern Orthodoxy and, Western Christianity. Significant differences, although here in the West, in the United States, we have many mainline traditional churches, many mainline traditional Christian denominations, And of those, most of them would have probably answered this question the same way. Tucker says, so do you see the supernatural at work, out in the world right now? Do you see God at work? And his answer was no. To be honest, I don't. And I would have expected that answer from someone who claims Christianity, wears the sign or a cross. He doesn't have a cross on, but, here in Western culture, people wear a cross, and that means they're a Christian. That happens a lot today. People are Christian because they go into a building on Sundays or whenever, and because their grandfather, great-great-grandfather, grandmother, sisters, aunts, and uncles all were baptized, that they somehow are now Christians. But he makes it very clear he doesn't believe God is at work. He doesn't see the supernatural at work. And that saddens me as the Christian, but from a very realistic point of view, I could tell he was telling the truth. And I applaud him for that. He doesn't see it at work. But I do. And many of us do. We see the supernatural at work, both good and bad. We see evil and we see good at work. Right now in our administration, and it saddens me to be able to say that we have an administration that is actually working more on the behalf of evil than it is of good. But the idea of a one world government, the idea of the world coming under a one world system, scripturally speaking, we know will eventually one day happen. That will happen. Talks about it in the book of Revelation. And that is not a good thing when it does happen, but it will happen. But does that mean we just give in and kind of say, okay, let's let it happen now? No, as Christians, we're supposed to fight the good fight of faith. And I bring all this up because I think that as truth is exposed, as we here on the show try to expose truth, we need to look at it realistically from both sides. And what is America doing to benefit America? What is America doing to benefit the world? And right now, unfortunately, it seems like America is more interested in the world as a whole than it is in America itself and the American taxpayer. And we're the ones that foot the bill. So this, you're going to hear a lot about this in the coming days, about this interview that Tucker did, fall out from it. And you're going to hear a lot of us people like-minded talking about the benefits of this, exposing the media, exposing the left and their agenda. And I say, again, this all leads to only one direction, at least right now, the upcoming election in 2024. What are we going to do? Well, we got to change. We got to do something to change what's happening. And the only way that happens is, we got to bring in an outsider. Before all this election stuff started, I really liked Nikki Haley for years that she was in the Trump's administration. But then near the end, there were some things that she did and started to combat and come against Trump. And I, at that point, began to turn my direction against her instead of for her, realizing that, she had some other plans. And sure enough, those plans are exposed readily today to us, any one of us that are following her campaign. Here she's still in, knowing she's 28 to 30-some points down in her own home state. But yet she's going to keep staying in the race. It tells me something. It tells me the left are grasping at straws. And they themselves would even vote for a Republican in name, kind of like, John McCain or whoever. They would vote for someone like that over Trump because these people are insiders. They're part of the same system. They may wear the label of Republican, Christian. They may wear the label, but doesn't mean that they are.